Jason Wright joins me here today. You can learn what his team is up to by going to intentionallyinspirational.com. Of course, that's a clickable link in the show notes. But really appreciate your time here, Jason, as we talk all things marketing.
Sounds great, man.
So you do a little investing yourself. Can you start there? Like, how did you find your way into investing, and how did it spur the concept for your business here in the marketing world?
Yeah, good question. So I've been doing the digital marketing. 2025 marks 10 years. Kind of crazy. It's gone by that quickly. And when you first start off, you kind of trying to figure it out, see, well, who will pay you, who will hire you to do whatever, and you figure out what you like and don't like. Well, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I worked with my first capital raiser. And I didn't have any concept of what that meant or what it was, but I understood kind of, a pipeline and how to get people into your world and nurture them and get on calls and all that. So I was able to provide value. I stumbled into Hunter Thompson when he launched Raise Masters, and I had the opportunity to work with a bunch of capital raisers. So I got to learn the space and the lingo and the asset classes and all this stuff at great depth so that I could help these folks with their marketing in a better way. I was working with a client one time, and I'd probably worked with 50 or 60 at this point, and he was pointing me to some stuff he put on his website as a lead magnet. And it was about taking an old IRA and rolling it into a self-directed IRA. That's really interesting. I have an old IRA. So did some research and found out I actually was eligible for a solo 401k based on how our business is set up with all contractors, and got in on a multifamily deal in Chattanooga. And then a year or so went by, and I made an investment with TechVestor, which is a short-term rental fund as well. So two different asset classes. And, back then when I first started, it was what are the projected returns? And then I kind of realized over time that it's all about the people on the deal. If you don't know them well, you really need to know kind of their experience and their track record, because good deals are everywhere. I mean, if one passes by, another one will come, but the people involved is the piece that matters the most. So that's kind of how I get into investing.
So, could you talk a little bit about the services you provide through your company here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest focus was always lead nurture. So what happens after people join your email list? We do offer lead gen as well, because business owners largely, when they want to grow or when they're slow and getting too slow, the number one thing they want, whether it's what they actually need or not, is more leads, more opportunities to talk about what they do. So offering the lead gen piece is something that we did for a while, didn't do for a while, we do again. And we really like Facebook ads, Facebook lead forms, especially if you want like accredited investors. It's a fairly effective way to get qualified people on your calendar. And then with the lead nurture piece, we use either ActiveCampaign or GoHighLevel, which are two competitor products, to kind of deal with what comes next. And, we help set it up and train you on it and support you for life and all that good stuff. But it is really a type of service that expands to any high ticket service based business. So a lot of investors have, other businesses they do, or courses or coaching programs, et cetera, masterminds. And this type of stuff is helpful for all those for sure.
Sure. So you pretty much, it sounds like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but most of your nurturing and everything is around attracting investors, as in like maybe for syndicators, that type of.
Yeah. I mean, it could be investors for syndications or funds, either way, but part of it is getting new people into your world. The other piece is maintaining those relationships. And then if you actually have a raise, generating excitement and drawing attention for the different pieces of that as well. Whether it's getting them on a webinar, after that, getting soft commitments, money wired or paperwork signed, all those things can be nurtured too. Yep.
Sure. Well, look, could we go into some of these strategies then? You mentioned one of the things you favor Facebook ads and those forms. Can you tell me how you found your way, like finding that as one of the better approaches? It doesn't seem conducive to the people you're trying to attract.
So what's interesting is everybody thinks LinkedIn, right?
Hmm.
Agreed.
That's the first place that came to my mind.
Yeah. So the same people who are on LinkedIn are also on Facebook. Now they may be in a little bit different frame of mind, but the same people are in both places. Facebook is significantly more robust with the advertising options compared to LinkedIn. LinkedIn ads can be effective. They're expensive, in my opinion, and the results generally aren't good enough. It just in my own experience. So with Facebook, it seems a little bit better. And with the AI and the machine learning, it's just really, really effective at being able to target people. So the targeting options are more robust. The success has been better with Facebook compared to LinkedIn.
Sure. So when you set the, go ahead.
We're
So you,
talking paid only. So organic, LinkedIn can be effective. I do also know people who have posted for years and have nothing to show for it, which is probably where most people fall, to be honest.
talk a little bit about this then. So let's say somebody witnesses an ad on Facebook
Mhm.
and you're trying to capture through a Facebook form. Are you just asking for some basic information? Because Facebook is feeding you some of their profile information, I'm sure.
Yes, it depends what the client wants. Let's say a client wants only to talk to accredited investors. So first thing we're going to do is ask them if they're accredited, and Facebook allows you to use conditional logic in that form. So if they say no, you redirect them to the website and say, thanks, have a great day. If they say yes, you can ask more information. It's really clear, like, hey, if you complete this form, somebody's going to reach out to you. So it's high intent. We're looking for high intent people that have money, that are looking to invest in 6 months or less, that meet the criteria. And you can't guarantee they do. You're taking their word for it. But Facebook will share first name, last name, phone number, country, and they get to see all that and submit that as well. But a lot of big names in the industry are doing it. It does work. There's some companies that you would recognize that spend a tremendous amount of money doing something very similar. I don't think it should be your only strategy to get new investors in your world, but it should be part of it for sure, because it definitely works.
So talk about some of the mistakes, like somebody going into this for the very first time, trying to set this up. These ad platforms can be daunting. I tried to do something in Google AdWords recently, and I haven't been in there for a long time. I bet you the screen count alone has doubled since the last time I've been in there.
Yep. So I've tinkered with Facebook ads for probably 10 years. In Google, it's the same way. They're always changing stuff. So if you haven't been in there in 6 months or a year, you may log in and go, what am I looking at? Where's this stuff at? So LinkedIn is like Facebook, but way simpler. It's like a lighter version. So that's pretty easy. Google, YouTube, that world's a little bit harder, but Facebook's probably the most complicated, but it's gotten better. You can make it complicated or you can keep it simple, and I try to keep it really simple. But yeah, it's the architecture of setting this stuff up, having it flow into your CRM and all this stuff, that can be super duper overwhelming for people, especially if you don't do it every day like we do.
So what are some of the big mistakes somebody might make doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think just with marketing in general, it's overcomplicating it, right? Marketing is just grabbing attention and keeping attention, right? And the attention, when you keep it, is maintaining relationships. Like if you build a list and you don't talk to them every week or twice every 2 weeks, they're going to forget who you are. Not because you're not great or your brand isn't exciting. It's because we all get overwhelmed with incoming information all day, every day of our life. That's the reality where we're at. So, keeping it simple, not being so in love with your ideas that you are in love with them to a fault. So you have to let the data and the market tell you what's working and what's not. And the truth is, the market is always changing. So when I say that, what people respond to favorably doesn't stay the same forever. What worked in our business 2 years ago doesn't work now at all. It's very, very different. Our offer was extremely unique back then. We have a lot more competition now, and a lot of part-time or new capital raisers got shaken out in 2024. A lot of folks went out of business. That's just the reality of it. So for all these reasons, things are always changing. If I try something, I'm not emotionally attached to it, because if it doesn't work, if the data is terrible, I've got to change it, especially if I'm using somebody else's money.
So did you talk a little bit about keeping the ad spend on these platforms a bit under control?
Yeah. I mean, you can start realistically $25 a day on Facebook, and you can run three different ads to one audience. And by the end of a week, a 7-day week, you're going to have two that outperform the third. You can kill the slug and try to take the best one and make a variation of it. It's a simple way to test, but it'll take you a little time to get some data. I mean, people still have this idea you turn an ad on today and tomorrow you're going to be overwhelmed with calls. It's not how it works. Takes time. Now, if you have an enormous budget, maybe, but at that budget, you're not going to. So $25 a day, $750 a month. It's a great place to start. Less than that, I wouldn't waste my money. It's not worth it. So
Is that just because at that point, that's the tipping point where Facebook is kind of favoring your ads a little bit?
$25 a day, it sure doesn't go as far as it used to, but it gives you enough reach that if you're patient with it, if you accept that first month's going to be mostly testing and data collection, you'll get some results in that first month, but it takes a while to let their algorithm do its thing. And like I said, with their machine learning and stuff now, if you let that do what it's supposed to do, it'll probably outperform your stuff you do on your own. It's pretty amazing. So Facebook wants you to be successful because they want you to spend more money. So I know they can be a pain in the butt to deal with. They can shut off pages and accounts. They can do whatever they want, and they don't have to even talk to you about it. It's their world. So by you advertising their platform, you sign up for madness because sometimes the things they make you deal with is complete madness, meaning there's no logic involved. But yeah, $25 a day will give you enough reach that you'll figure out kind of what isn't working within a couple weeks.
So one of those things that I just from personal experience here, the form that you have them fill out,
Mhm.
is there like a sweet spot of the amount of info you're asking for? Because the reason I bring this up is because I had a form on a website once and I found that I made like their name, their phone number, and their email address like required fields. As soon as I turned off the required field for phone number, they could give it to me if they wanted to, but I no longer made it required. I
Yeah.
actually got an uptick in the number of people that would give me information.
Yeah, sure. It's what do you want? Do you want quantity or do you want quality? At the end of the day, regardless of what somebody says, what they really want is quality. It feels good to go, man, I'm getting 3 leads a day, but be honest with yourself. How many of those are turning into booked calls? And of those booked calls, are they worth your time? I tend to, for myself and for my clients, say, let's focus on quality because that's what's going to actually move the needle in your business.
So, what are some of the questions you ask to ensure it's a quality lead?
I mean, if somebody wants accredited investors, are you accredited? You define that. Have you ever invested in real estate, outside of your primary residence? How soon are you looking to invest? How much are you looking to invest? Are you good with somebody reaching out to us if you hit submit? And those questions right there go a long way. So if somebody completes all that, I'm going to say that's a pretty warm lead. They have plenty of opportunities to not do it. And it could be a competitor checking out your form or whatever, but if somebody has money and they have a burning desire to place it somewhere, maybe they've got a solo 401k or something, they want to get their limit for the year or whatever the case might be. They just want to diversify. If somebody's serious, they're going to fill it out. So
Do you do any work with your customers to reinforce their brand so that it becomes something that might be a little, this person is getting this random ad and it's asking them for a lot of information. There's got to be a little bit of some certainty there that they're dealing with a legit company.
yeah, in this example, I mean, really your Facebook page is what tells it. So if they go to your Facebook page, because that's going to be attached to the ad and it's blank, it's probably not going to look as good as if you've actually put some content out there. So the interesting thing about this approach is people aren't going to the website. They can if they want to, but the Facebook page is the more prevalent piece, and then they go straight into the CRM if they submit. So we can put them straight into ActiveCampaign or HighLevel, and we try to get them to book a call right away. They could spend so much time trying to make it perfect. And I know a lot of people who are very, very successful by anybody and everybody's standards that their brands are really, really simple.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just to remind everybody, head over to intentionallyinspirational.com, intentionallyinspirational.com. You're going to have that as a clickable link in the show notes. If you found some value in what we're talking about so far, do us a quick favor, share this with one of your investor friends. So I'm hoping you can give us some examples, Jason. Like talk to me about some of these investors and syndicators and fundraisers that you've been working with, where they started off and where they are today and how the relationship worked out.
It's a tough question. I've worked with 190 of them in the last 3 years. So I've had people that are super successful and I meet them. I've had people that are still a lot of people still in corporate trying to set something up to leave their W-2. So it's raising capital as a primary business is hard. It is not for the faint of heart. And I can say that because I've seen a lot of people go out of business. Good people, it's not for everybody. Most entrepreneurs fail in the first 5 years because they run out of time, money, or both. Last year was a tough year. It shook a lot of people out in, all industries, but this one especially. The people that are most successful, they understand a couple things. They understand the need to build an audience and a need to continually talk to give value to that audience. I find that people have the best luck when they're authentically themselves, and that's terrifying for people, especially in this space. Like, Jason, you don't understand. My audience is all surgeons. Cool. They're just people like you and I, right? And the people who are surgeons who actually are themselves are more successful than people that think everything needs to be buttoned up and stuffy. They read that crap all day at work. So I dare you to be yourself. That's going to make you different than everybody else. Good things can happen to you if you stay consistent with it.
It's one of those things, Jason, that I was hoping you were going to highlight is how much work this actually is. Because in the real estate investing world, you probably have seen it as much as I have. We get this bill of goods about how this is mailbox money and everything is so easy.
I hear it.
You've seen it, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit like what should somebody expect here? You talked about 25 bucks a day, $750 a month. How many months are you talking about to build this up so that you're seeing something on on a consistent basis, and then expect this to continue for a while?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, with the investors, you've got passive people like me. I don't want to do work. I want to give people like you money to run the deal and do it because I don't want to do that. And there's active investors who, depending on how much they want to be involved, it can be a lot of work. And there's some really not fun sides to that story, right? There's capital calls and there's problems with insurance and there's fires and there's natural disasters. So whether it's real estate or something else, generally the things that pay you the best do require work. Even if it's just upfront setting things up, there is no easy legal money that I've ever seen, not initially anyway. But yeah, this idea that I'm going to get rich if I invest in the apartment complex as a passive investor, it's not really how it works. So the people that are crushing it off passive investments have invested millions and millions of dollars. So it doesn't typically happen overnight. And I know some people in that mode, but it's not an overnight thing.
Especially if you can't throw a lot of money initially.
Yeah.
Would you recommend like this is one of the first places to start? Like, let's say you're going to start up your first syndication or fund. Would you say that they should spend some time, resources on this first one right in this type of digital marketing, or should they be pressing their network and finding other ways first?
Yeah. I mean, I think the smart play is limit your exposure and your output as much as you can. So your network, my network, I tried to raise money at one point and I realized I just didn't. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it at all. But my network doesn't really have a lot of, well, all the people in my network that are accredited are also capital raisers. So it doesn't help me much. But my network of friends and family doesn't really do much for me. Some people's network, if they're that surgeon, whatever, is great. So they can take that money from family and friends and professional, associates really, really far. They get to a point where they run out of money because everybody's got their money invested or they don't want to invest more. That point, they want to grow outside of that. Then the marketing comes into play. Other people like me who really don't have a network to start with in that regard, unless they're willing to do meetups and do all this stuff, they're going to need some way to kind of prime the pump. So kind of depends where you're coming from and what your goals are for sure. But you will get to a point eventually where organically scaling for most people, you're going to run out of runway. You're going to need some help. Some people are really, really successful and don't spend any money on marketing at all, but it's probably single digit percent if I had to guess.
Well, let's say somebody is trying to find or create their initial digital presence. You already pointed out the fact that it's kind of important to maybe even start now to get your business Facebook page and
Yeah.
set up and at least feeding it something
Yeah.
so that when you're engaged, there's something to start with.
Yeah, so I always teach with the funnel, you've got three pieces. You've got traffic, so it's grabbing attention online or offline, directly to a page online. You've got the front end, which is the pages that people interact with, like website, landing pages, etc. Then you have the back end, which is the CRM, like ActiveCampaign or GoHighLevel. I always teach people start with the back end, get a plan together. Some people got on your list, some things happen, then go to the traffic, right? So you go straight from Facebook ads in the back end. A lot of people will disagree with me, but I had a conversation with a guy that raises 40 to 50 million bucks a year and doesn't have a website. And I was like, dude, you were the best use case of what I preach that I've ever met. So the back end piece is huge. If you don't have any kind of way to keep people organized, track conversations. Those legal pads and post-it notes will get overwhelming eventually.
Sure. Share with us, in starting this business, what has been your most expensive lesson?
Most expensive lesson is relying on other people and other businesses for leads. So believe it or not, I didn't do my own lead gen for years and years. I didn't need to. 2024 was that year where I hit a point and I was like, I've created a terrible situation for myself and I don't know if I'll get out of it. So very, very, very difficult year. Probably, arguably, maybe the hardest year I've ever had in business, but I focus on our leads every day now. And we use cold email outreach and Facebook ads and referrals as well. But just relying on referrals alone is insane. It's insane. And I didn't see that for 8 years or so. It took a while, but that's probably my biggest expense. And the expense comes at a loss of revenue because of that.
Would you mind sharing what happened there that
Yes. So last year, once upon a time, I had 3 or 4 major lead sources that would send me leads all the time for what we did. I'd kick them back money for referral if we closed the deal. All the lead sources decided to become competitors. It was kind of strange. It all happened kind of at the exact same time. So is it coincidence? I have no idea. Doesn't really matter. But the market was also crap for capital raisers. And that was all I focused on last year. That was the only industry I focused on. Well, now I know it's a very volatile industry. And when times are good, you'll have a lot of people entering the space. When times are bad, they get shaken out. So my revenue, my personal income dropped a couple 100,000 from the previous year. So that's not fun. And it is what it is. And even though I started focusing on my own leads, nothing good happens overnight. So it takes time. So there you go in a nutshell.
Okay. Well, what has been something that you've implemented into your business that has had the biggest value? Like maybe even something that surprised you that has really paid off?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty generic answer, but it's pretty true. Consistent daily action towards whatever I'm working towards. So when I started in entrepreneurship, I wasn't a very patient person. And if you're going to survive in it, you don't have a choice but to become patient. The reason why is the timeline for stuff is unknown. It's absolutely unknown. So if you know you need to do something, let's say you want to grow your business significantly because of LinkedIn. Well, you probably need to post daily. Probably should post 5 days a week. Do you need to do that for a month? I don't know. It might be 2 years, but you have to be good with the timeline being unknown. So consistent action towards the things that are important to me is, a great lesson for sure.
Yeah. One of those things that you mentioned early on, planning these things out, it's amazing sometimes how frequently you run into people who have all of these concepts and thoughts and dreams, but they haven't taken a moment to actually plan it out, maybe even write up a business plan and drawing that target so that they know what they're even aiming for.
Yeah. And the other piece of that is a lot of people always have a reason why they won't just take action, right? They'll have all these ideas and all this stuff, but like you said, there's no goal, there's no action, and 6 months goes by and nothing changes and they can't figure out why. So
Well, Jason, this has been just fantastic and interesting conversation. One more time, I'm going to direct everybody to your website, which is intentionallyinspirational.com, intentionallyinspirational.com. Before we jump into the rapid fire questions and close out this episode, is there any topic or thought that we should have covered here?
so a lot of what I said today, I don't want it to be construed as negative. It's real. But I want to encourage you and say, if you have a dream or if you have a goal, there's no reason you can't hit that, right? People do whatever you're trying to do every year, all the time. Why not you? There's nothing more special or more deserving about them. I do believe that consistent action is like one of the most important things to reach your goals, regardless of what we're talking about. So don't let my hardcore truths in this episode deter you from doing anything.
Well, one of the hardcore truths that I've definitely learned is that consistent action is going to trump any education and knowledge anybody could possibly perceive. I've seen some pretty remarkable things from just persistent, consistent motivation.
Sure.
Well, Jason, if you're ready, we'll jump into the rapid fire questions.
I was born ready, sir.
Okay. What lie do real estate investors tell themselves?
This is going to be easy mailbox money every month.
That one always makes me laugh. I think your parent company name is Gray Fox Business. It's going to show my age a little bit, but I still to this day remember those late night infomercials
Mhm.
just promising the world
Yeah,
when it comes to real estate.
absolutely.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Start generating your own leads from day one, dummy. That's,
Do you have a book recommendation?
so I'll be honest with you. I'm not reading anything right now. First 2 years of business, I consumed a lot ever since I would rather create content than consume it. But Think and Grow Rich, probably a very common suggestion, but that was really the book for me that I was like, enough's enough. Let's go. So Napoleon Hill, it's a classic, but it's a good one and very timeless as well.
And then finally, do you have a single tool that you have implemented that has had a huge time saving impact to you or your business?
A single tool. Yeah, we'll say if I have to pick one, I'll say Slack. We use Slack workspaces heavily. The ability to drop Loom screen share videos in there, the ability to use the voice memo feature, and obviously text is fantastic. So we use them with most of our clients, use them with our team. It's great.
Well, it's either Slack or Microsoft Teams.
Teams,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the dominant things. Well, I guess Zoom is still out there,
Oh yeah.
but I really appreciate your time, Jason. This has been fantastic. I hope you'll consider coming back. It was great meeting you.
Thank you as well.